welcome back to What's Haunting the Hearst. Happy Friday. So, I originally said last week that I would give this Friday's vlog. It was going to be on the incident at Diatlov's Pass. That isn't going to be the case. It's been kind of a hectic week, and I don't feel I'd be able to do justice to the incident at Diatlov Pass. There's a lot of moving parts in that story, and I want to do it justice. So today I'm going to tell a story that I heard either yesterday or the day before, and it happened in the Smoky Mountains, which is right down the road from me. This man, who's an experienced hiker and hunter, I think he hiked about a mile into this area of the Smoky Mountains, and he was going to camp. And I don't think it was in the national park. It was right outside, maybe in the foothills area of the Smokies. And so he had his rifle with him. I don't think he was hunting. I think he just had it for protection. And he had his 2 German Shepherd dogs with him. And it was something that he did all the time. And so he had done some hiking throughout the day, and he came back and set up a camp, set up a tent, and built a fire, cooked some food, just relaxing with the dogs. And eventually he went to bed, and he said it was a pretty kind of cool night. It wasn't cold, it wasn't hot, so he left the tent flap open, and him and the dogs settled down to go to bed. In the middle of the night, he woke up to his dogs doing a low growl at something outside of the tent. He said they seemed more hesitant than they usually had when encountering wildlife. So he was a little perplexed, but he said earlier when they had been hiking, they had found some bear scat out in the trail, and so he knew there was a bear around. So he kind of assumed that what was outside getting these dogs all riled up was a bear. So he poked his head out the tent, and about 15 yards away from the tent, the fire had already died down, and so he saw something crouched down, and it was big, but it wasn't like a man. It wasn't standing up, and he immediately assumed it was that bear. So he had dealt with bears before, and he said, "Hey, bear," just hollering out, hoping to scare it. Black bears, unless they're defending cubs, they're not big on attacking you. I mean, it can happen, definitely, and it has happened. But if you make yourself known and make yourself seem big and intimidating, a lot of times they'll run off. Especially if there's 2 German Shepherds around. German Shepherds, or any type of dog really, can spook a black bear. Just watch YouTube, and there's plenty of YouTube videos where dogs will scare bears off. But these dogs were growling, and whatever it was just sitting there. And then he said whatever it was, as soon as he said, "Hey, bear," that thing just started doing a low growl of its own. And he said, "Well, this isn't a bear. It didn't sound like a bear." He said it looked really too big to be a black bear. I mean, black bears don't really get that big. So he got up out of the tent, and when he got up out of the tent, this thing stood up like a man. But it stood like 7-8 foot tall. And he said it was kind of thin-bodied, but still massive. Thin-bodied for its height. But it was covered in hair. But he couldn't see the face very well. And he said that thing just let out this roar, almost like a lion's roar, and took off running away from the camp. And he said as soon as it did, those dogs took off after it. This is an important part of the story to me. So the dogs took off after it. Well, he was terrified of his dogs actually catching up with this thing, because obviously anything that size can handle those dogs. So he got his rifle and he took off running. But dogs and whatever it was chasing were going much faster than a man could go. And he chased him as long as he could that night. He never did catch up with him. He went back to camp, went to sleep. He said, "I'll regroup and I'll track him in the morning." But secretly he was hoping the dogs would come back to camp while he was asleep. Well, he woke up and the dogs weren't there. So, and he didn't mention anything about footprints or anything like that. But he went off into the direction that the dogs had ran, and he walked a pretty good ways and looking for his dog, and he heard a whimper, a dog whining. And he found one of his dogs, and it had been beat up pretty bad. It had blood on it, but it's still alive. It's still limping around. Not significantly injured, but injured. And he followed the dog a little ways, and it led him to the other dog that was absolutely mangled. And he didn't get into details, but he said that the dog was mangled almost beyond recognition. And he took his remaining dog and got back to camp, packed everything up and left. And he said I never went back camping again in the Smoky Mountains. And he didn't give an explanation as to what he thought it was. And I'm sure a lot of people would hear this and think Bigfoot. It's tempting for me to say Bigfoot. But I don't think that's what it was. We're going to introduce a new cryptid in this episode. And that cryptid is the Dog Man. So, I'm sure you've grown up hearing stories your whole life about werewolves. So, werewolves are fiction, and Dogman is real, in my opinion. So, werewolves are men that, according to the cycle of the moon, can transform into a wolf. They can walk around on his hind legs and is gigantic, but once that moon wanes, he turns back into a man, almost seemingly unaware of what took place, depending on what werewolf legend that you hear. However, Dogman is not a man at all. The only reason it's called a dog man is because it can walk around on its hind legs like a man. This is a cryptid. This is an actual creature. It can look, when it's on its haunches or walking around on four legs, it can look like a very, very, very large wolf. But it seems to be much more adept at walking around and even running around on its hind legs. And it's very dangerous. It's very aggressive. More aggressive than Bigfoot, even though Bigfoot can be quite aggressive at times. But the one thing that gives it away for me and leads me away from the Bigfoot, like I said, this guy did not get a good look at this creature because the fire had completely died down. It was out. The thing that leads me away from Bigfoot is most of the time when you hear of interactions with dogs and Bigfoot. Now, you have situations where a dog will run up on Bigfoot accidentally, and you have stories of Bigfoot tearing dogs in pieces. However, a lot of times when dogs have been used in the tracking of Bigfoot, the dogs will not track him. They are afraid to track him. But if you think about Dogman, or whatever you want to call this creature, if you want to call it a werewolf, fine. It's obviously much like a wolf. So in my thinking, maybe these dogs recognize a kindred spirit in the animal. And dogs, being very territorial and very protective, while they may get whooped by this other dog, they'll go after it. Which explains to me the zero hesitancy in these two German Shepherds to go after this thing, where in all probability, had it been Bigfoot, they probably would not have pursued it. Now, they may have been extraordinarily brave dogs, but I think they saw a dog creature that they wanted to tear limb from limb, only they were not able to. So that kind of creeps me out, because I've heard of Dogman, I've read of Dogman many times, but I never thought of him in my area. He's a more rarely seen creature than Bigfoot. And Bigfoot's not widely seen as far as legitimate eyewitness sightings. So Dogman is even more rare than Bigfoot. So to think of him in my neck of the woods creeps me out. Really does. Creeps me out. So what's haunting the hearse today? Dogman. And the fact that he's in my freaking area. But I hope you enjoyed this vlog, and I hope it makes you want to do your own research on cryptids, because there's cryptids all over the place. They discover new creatures every day. Some of them are tiny microorganisms. Some of them are whole new species of bird, or sometimes creatures that are quite larger, that are in denser areas of the world. And Dogman is one of those creatures, yet to be officially discovered and studied by science. but he's out there. And apparently he's very close to me. So, catch us next week. We're going to talk about a miracle church in my area in the mid-90s. And on Friday, we're going to talk about the incident at Diatlov's Pass. So, keep tuning in. Keep watching the videos. Tell your friends. And I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you.